took control. The details of the stories and many more coming up shortly. Please stay with us. Many thanks for joining us. Now, let's begin from the strike action from the nurses, because there's some good news, and the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association has officially called off its nationwide strike, which began on June 9, 2025, over the government's failure to implement revised conditions of service. Announcing the suspension at a press briefing in Accra, the president of the association, Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, emphasized the need for the government to show greater respect for the nursing profession and address the welfare needs of its members with urgency.
Pleas from our patients and the timely intervention of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, the leadership of the association wishes to state as follows. The engagement held with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health and other interested parties on Thursday, 12 June 2025, was very fruitful and has paved the way for an amicable resolution of the impasse with our employer concerning the implementation of our collective agreements. 2. In view of point 1 above, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association's industrial action initiated on 2nd June 2025 is hereby suspended, pending the outcome of the follow-up meeting scheduled for 26 June 2025. 3. We call on our dear nurses and midwives to resume their normal shift duties from Saturday, 14th June 2025. And we wish to assure you that we will not rest on our oars until the collective agreement is fully implemented. 4. We are thankful to the chairman, the ranking member, and all other members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health for their timely intervention to set a clear framework for the implementation of our collective agreements. We are equally grateful to the nursing and midwifery fraternity, especially our GRNMA members, for the deep sense of solidarity in adhering to the roadmap. To the press, we thank you sincerely for carrying our voices to Ghanaians and indeed the whole world, and encourage you all to be professional in all matters to protect citizens from misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. We thank you all for your attention.
The president of the association. Meanwhile, the Minister for Communications, Sam Nartey George, has briefed Parliament on Thursday, detailing the reasons for the shutdown and announcing a 30-day clemency for the offending media houses.
Spectrum is used responsibly, professionally, and in the public interest. Mr. Speaker, the term of an FM radio broadcasting authorization is 5 years. Under Regulation 56 of the ECR 2011, a renewal application must be submitted to the NCA at least 3 months, 90 days before the expiration of the existing authorization. Failure to comply with this 90-day prior timeline results in the application or any new application being treated as a new application before the NCA. In fact, the Electronic Communications Tribunal, chaired by Justice Dateba, affirmed this position in the case of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association versus the NCA Appeal Number ECT/APP/002/2017. Mr. Speaker, on 12 February 2025, shortly after I assumed office as the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, I issued a directive to the NCA to produce a complete listing of frequency authorizations granted or renewed within the preceding 60 days. The objective of the audit was to produce an accurate and up-to-date inventory of all assigned, unassigned, and unauthorized frequency holdings in Ghana. Our goal is not punishment, but accountability, order, and the responsible stewardship of a public critical resource. This is not routine housekeeping. This is a declaration against impunity, abuse, and inertia. The airwaves do not belong to the powerful and connected. They belong to the public, and we are duty-bound to govern them transparently and effectively. Our fight is not against free speech. It is against lawlessness, asset misappropriation, and regulatory defiance. I remain committed to reclaiming what rightfully belongs to the Ghanaian people and laying the foundations for a fair, modern, and technologically equipped broadcasting sector. Once again, Mr. Speaker, due to the clemency His Excellency the President has asked for, there is 30 days from today for all defaulting media houses to rectify their defaults and breaches. And Mr. Speaker, the ministry has shown that we are willing to reinstate. Earlier this year, we shut down 6 media houses who have all rectified their breaches and they have been reinstated. We urge the defaulting media houses to take advantage of the President's clemency for 30 days.
Meanwhile, the minority has described the President's clemency for the offending media houses as a political charade.
Ladies and gentlemen, nowhere in the law or our Constitution is the President granted the authority to override independent regulatory enforcement. The President claims to protect media freedom, but his method destroys the legal framework that makes media freedom sustainable. True media freedom requires predictable regulatory processes, equal treatment under the law, independence from political interference, and respect for statutory procedures. By overriding regulatory independence, the President has damaged all 4 foundations. This same President has repeatedly called for respect for the rule of law and institutional independence. Yet, when he suits his political purposes, he abandons these principles entirely. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I call upon you to condemn the presidential overreach as a violation of regulatory independence, demand immediate reversal of the unconstitutional and unlawful directive, require the affected stations to comply with statutory procedures, and establish clear boundaries for executive authority over regulatory bodies, and then investigate the decision-making process that led to this legal and then constitutional overreach. Independence is not about supporting or opposing any particular government. It's about defending the constitutional architecture that makes democracy work. When we allow presidents to override statutory institutions based on policy preferences, we replace the rule of law with that of the rule of men. The question before us is simple. Will you defend the Constitution, or we will watch silently as executive power devours the independence of our institutions? I, Charles Ishaku Oredu, I choose to defend the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, and I urge you, each one of you, to do the same.
Let's now listen to both the minority and majority leaders speaking in the House.
What we are seeing in respect of the statement from the presidency later this afternoon, a supposed clemency. Mr. Speaker, these are things that are done for the optics when the political system sees that there's a backlash. It is a very rich statement, very rich. And we take this supposed clemency with a pinch of salt. Mr. Speaker, we take this with a pinch of salt. That the NCA, together with the ministry, have embarked on a certain path, and now Mr. President, exercising his supervisory mandate, is now telling them that don't do it. Couldn't this have been discussed in-house prior to this decision? Well, Mr. Speaker, we have been in government before, so we can understand the situation the government finds itself. Mr. Speaker, I have heard certain views being expressed to the effect that, oh, yesterday we heard of similar actions by the executive. I recall that as a member of the appointment committee, the issue of the closure of some radio stations became a critical matter for us to even discuss at the appointment committee. And our friends opposite were very, very firm in their conviction. And I shared those sentiments with them. Granted that something happened yesterday which was not good for our country. Do we have to repeat them? No.
The NPP was in power in 2008, and the laws that govern electronic communication and the National Communication Authority, which define the obligations of license owners, were passed by the NPP. So I am surprised that today, the leader of the minority, an MPP leader of the minority, and a lawyer for that matter, will stand in this chamber and say that it is unconstitutional and a violation of the Constitution for laws to be passed governing the management of frequencies. And yet, it was your party and your government in 2008 that enacted those legislation through this parliament. So I think that when you urge others to be consistent, you must also be consistent yourself. So if you say Sam George has to be consistent, I also want to also be consistent. Be consistent with the position of your party on the management of frequencies. And as for His Excellency the President, I am surprised that you will say that he is being magnanimous because of public backlash. When did the suspensions take place? And when did that public backlash occur that I sit here haven't heard? When did that public backlash occur? The suspension occurred at what time of the day? At 10 a.m. this morning. And the clemency came at 12, within 2 hours. Who could have exercised such public backlash that His Excellency...
That the Ministry of Interior has inaugurated an 11-member governing board of the Gaming Commission of Ghana, which will be charged with driving regulatory reform and promoting responsible gaming practices across the country. Now, the board is mandated to ensure compliance with international best practices, combat underage gambling and illegal gaming operations, and support staff capacity development within the Commission. Now, the Ministry underscored the need for stronger governance and policy frameworks to address the rapidly evolving gaming landscape, especially with the emergence of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. In a statement during the inauguration, the minister emphasized the urgency of passing the draft legislative instrument which seeks to modernize the gaming industry's legal and regulatory framework. He noted that the existing Gaming Act falls short in addressing current and future challenges, making the new LI a critical tool for advancing governance and ensuring sustainability in the sector. Now, commending the Gaming Commission for recent strides, the minister also highlighted the key achievements such as the drafting of the LI, the development of a health and safety policy, and the launch of Purple Month initiative aimed at raising awareness among youth on the dangers of gaming addiction. Now, away from that, the Greater Accra Regional Minister is calling on MMDAs to step up their game in the fight against poor sanitation. At the first Regional Coordinating Council meeting, Linda Oklu said enforcement, education and innovation are crucial to transforming the region into a clean, resilient urban space.
Sanitation remains a critical challenge in our region. Poor waste disposal, open defecation, illegal dumping, and choke drains undermine our effort to present the region as safe, inclusive, and resilient modern urban region. As a council, we must treat this not just as an environmental concern, but as a developmental priority. I urge all MMDAs to intensify enforcement of sanitation bylaws, promote public education and behavioral change, collaborate actively with private sector players, prepare for the upcoming national sanitation exercise to be launched by His Excellency the President. In line with the present directive, sanitation has now become a key performance indicator for all MMDCs. To encourage excellence, an award scheme will soon be introduced to recognize best for performing assemblies. My first days in office saw the introduction of monthly Regional Sanitation Day. However, preparation towards the National Sanitation Day by His Excellency the President has put the regional exercise on hold. I implore you to continue the efforts made towards Regional Sanitation Day to ensure our environment.
Flooding in the Greater Accra region remains a major threat to lives and properties. And at the first regional coordinating council meeting, the regional minister Linda Kru has urged assemblies to adopt proactive strategies like drain desilting, strict planning enforcement and demolition around waterways to avert future disaster.
The low laying of our region has made it prone to floods. Flooding continues to cause damage and displace lives whenever it occurs. The cost of most MMDAs and individuals when floods occur is huge, and we must all commit to ensure we reduce the effects to our people. Not too long ago, we celebrated 10 years of the infamous 3rd June double tragedy at Kwame Nkrumah Circle, where we pledged never again. We must witness such. The RCC will work closely with all 17 MMDAs under the Garrett project and other flood-prone MMDAs to desilt, drain regularly, enforce planning regulations, undertake planned demolitions of illegal structures, especially around the Ramsar sites and waterways. In this regard, I have led the Regional Security Council, some local authorities, and other stakeholder institutions to demolish illegal structures at some Ramsar sites, which serves as holding pools for running water. We must shift from reactive responses to proactive, long-term flood management.
Away from that, the paramount chief of Sango traditional area, Yakubu Abdullahi, says the use of illicit drugs by the youth of northern Ghana is a looming danger, calling for a collaborative effort by all stakeholders to help fight the menace. He made the proposal during a stakeholder engagement on drug abuse organized by Savannah Signatures, a non-government organization in the northern region.
The use of tramadol and other illicit drugs are becoming rampant in the northern region, wasting the lives of many young people in the region. The devastating effects of the drugs forced the youth leaders in the region to form a task force to fight the usage and sales of these drugs. Many prominent people, including police officers, have been arrested by the task force for their involvement in the sales and trading of these illicit drugs in the region. During the stakeholder meeting organized by Savannah Signatures, the paramount chief of Sagnarigo traditional area, now Yakubu Abdullahi, said the traditional authorities are ready to support every effort that leads to a successful fight against the use of illicit drugs in the region and beyond.
With the outrage in Tamale and around leading to the formation of task forces, the state remains silent when it should have taken advantage for intelligence and active participation of these youths and traditional areas to fight the phenomenon. In some cases, the state institutions even seemed to be opposing the fight that had been taken up by civilians. The public is ready, the communities are ready to provide intelligence on the traffickers, on traders, on depots, on consumers to relevant authorities and assist in operations aimed at curbing the.
Now, Yakubu blamed many of the state institutions for allowing the entry of these drugs into the country, calling for a collective effort from stakeholders and citizens to combat the menace.
Police, FDA, Narcotics Control Board, etc. need to be up and doing. Traditional authorities and the public are standing by to actively get involved. The question of parental responsibility has been mentioned. It is absolutely necessary for the continued outreaches and advocacy to target this very seriously. At night, you see 8, 10-year-olds on the streets.
Reversal of the unconstitutional and unlawful directive require the affected stations to comply with statutory procedures and establish clear boundaries for executive authority over regulatory bodies, and then investigate the decision-making process that led to this legal and then constitutional overreach. It's not about supporting or opposing any particular government. It's about defending the constitutional architecture that makes democracy work.
Now, the former Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Eko Spiel-Gabra, has urged African governments to leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area as a unified shield against the latest wave of trade tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Speaking during the panel discussion at the City Business Festival in Accra on Thursday, Dr. Spiel-Gabra expressed concern over what he described as the unpredictable nature of Trump's trade policies, warning that individual African countries risk being singled out for punitive tariffs.
The infrastructure program, now Kwame Nkrumah also set an example, Black Star Line. So there's a time this one country of Ghana had 22 merchant ships which were sailing the seas of Africa. And the idea was to have an African shipping line. Because Black Star Line came from the idea of Marcus Garvey from the 1920s. Why shouldn't Africa and African Americans and Caribbean Africans who also ship from Africa come in one force to create a shipping line instead of depending on European or other shipping lines who bring goods and services. I'm talking about after now. Because your shipments, if they're owned by other people, you can't really have control over your economy, the cost, the financing, the insurance, and all those things. And so there's an African Insurance Organization, mostly in East Africa, Africa Trade Insurance. Okay, so the financial building blocks are more or less in place. African Development Bank is there. African Export Bank is there. The Africa Trade Insurance people are there. I'm saying now let's add African pensions, let's add African remittances, and then the member countries can implement these programs more efficiently. But then the human factor will always be there. How to stop ordinary police people, ordinary border guards, or whoever they call themselves, gendarmes, interfering with the trade. And those then become local implementation issues. Wow. There's a lot to be said, but I was also an advisor at one time to an African railway project, which didn't get very far. But there's a continental thinking about that. I've been also both a shareholder and a partner, an advisor to an African telecommunication infrastructure project, fiber optic, to link up the countries, which also reduce the cost of knowledge transmission and commercial transmission and this and that. So there are many things that I'm saying that the Pan-African approach is key to me in terms of almost everything you want to do to reduce the cost, to aggregate the market size, because any country by itself is small. Ghana is a very, very small country in global economy. Even the whole of Africa, we are often less than 2% of global trade, 2% of global savings, 2% of almost everything. So until we aggregate our strength, we are always a small fry. We have our Gadugu Accord, which was supposed to unify African airlines. We had Air Afrique at one time, mostly Pan-African. I mean, it was a Francophone African project.
And that's all for the news updates this afternoon. Many thanks for watching. I am Desmond Okreku. That's handing over back to Bright Nana Kwesiamening for the rest of the program. Bright.
Right, Desmond, thank you for the updates. And so, watching us live here on Good Afternoon Ghana from our studios here at Region Accra, the Kuyaboyima studio. We are very active on Facebook and on X at Metro TV Ghana, and YouTube, and also on Instagram at Metro TV GH. And that was Desmond Okreku Dancer. So we are going to go for a very quick break. When we come back, my colleague Vanessa Edutom Watson is on standby. She's our correspondent who came to us live from the just ended presser by the Attorney General, Honorable Dominic Ayine. We'll bring more details on that, but let me give you this quotation before we go for break. On Good Morning Ghana this morning, a member of the legal team of the NDC, Esquire Victor Kojoga Daudu said, the law is the law, but equity will always follow. That's whatever this issue is coming from Dominic Ayine. We'll follow up and see whatever the result is. Don't go nowhere. We're still live here on Good Morning Ghana. After this break, there'll be more. Stay with us.
Whether you're a wholesaler, retailer, or consumer, MNC Logistics and Trading is your trusted partner in minerals and food commodities trading. Experience the difference with MNC Logistics and Trading for your commodities trading. We operate a well-equipped laboratory that smelts and assays gold to ensure transparent, credible, and reliable minerals transactions. Our general food commodity market deals with imports and exports of food products such as rice, sugar, and grains. We pride ourselves on delivering products that meet the highest standards of quality and taste. With our expertise in international trading and logistics, we bridge customers far and wide. Locate us at number 4 Neosai Interfo Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 030-299-8246 or visit our website www.mnclogisticsandtrading.com. MNC Logistics and Trading, hub of confidence.
Smart, smooth, interactive, and a built-in Android active panel made for modern work and home. For corporate clients and university students, enjoy top-quality 10th generation Toshiba laptops built for performance, power, clarity, and speed, all in one desktop. At Mycom JA Computers, get a laptop for as low as 1,000 Ghana cedis. All products are imported from the USA with a 1-year warranty. Visit Mycom JA Computers today and elevate your tech.
Some movies change the world, and you'll find them elsewhere. Mnet Movies 4 is just in it to change your mood. Great. Yes, okay. They turn an ordinary night into something awesome. Make you laugh louder, smile bigger, and feel like a kid all over again.
Yay! This is so much fun!
The only thing our movies are seriously serious about is making you happy. All month long. On Mnet Movies 4 for the easy, cheesy, silly, funny, snort laugh classic movies of your life.
Welcome back. We're still live here on Good Afternoon, Ghana. I am Bright, Nana Kwesi Aminin. We are very active on Facebook and also on X at Metro TV Ghana, on Instagram and on YouTube at Metro TV GH. Just go up there and follow us, like, comment, and share the stream. Let's have a conversation this afternoon. And so we are going to base most of the conversation here this afternoon on the recent presser organized by the Attorney General, Dominic Ayine, concerning some fraudulent and corruption acts here in the public sector, focusing on the National Service Authority, with a special person, former Deputy Director of the authority, Gifty Owari Mensah, whose name stood tall in a number of corruption cases there involving her and the outfit. My colleague Vanessa Editom Boatin, who was at the premises and came through with all the update, is joining me from the venue with more updates on that. Vanessa, good afternoon. Welcome to Good Afternoon, Ghana. I'm particularly happy about the question you asked the Attorney General as to if we are really sure that we are really not going to just prosecute these people and have them just stay in jail or wherever they'll be asked to be, but also, these monies will be retrieved. That question actually hit me hard. Tell me more about that.
Right. Yes, right. Currently at the Ministry of Information, and the Attorney General has been briefing us on his investigation so far regarding the NSS scandal. And then he also mentioned year to year the amount of money we lost to NSS ghost names, especially the 2022-2023 year.
Right.
Over 350 million Ghana cedis was lost to ghost names. And so looking at these figures, one will wonder, these investigations, if these people are apprehended, charged, are they going to refund this kind of monies? Because it's over 540 million lost to NSS ghost names. That prompted me to ask such question, because this is a lot of money, and then Ghana would really need that money to do a lot of profitable things for the country. And so that prompted me to ask that question.
Right. But then I know you may have spoken to some of the people who came there to listen to the Attorney General. Tell me, the euphoria at the police, what are the responses you are getting after the statement and the presser?
Right, the atmosphere actually has been one of excitement, because the country is losing a lot of money to corruption. And so people are happy that at least the Attorney General is taking steps to retrieve and recover this money. The Attorney General answered that obviously not all money, so not all the 554 million Ghana cedis will be retrieved, but a big chunk of that money will be retrieved. So the euphoria actually is one of a happy one, and people are actually excited that Operation Recover All Loot is taking steps to help restore sanctity in the country, devoid
Vanessa,
of corruption.
Let me now allow you to categorically take us through what exactly the presser was really about, and also tell me the figures that were mentioned. I know they are huge ones. I have some here, but let me allow you to do the first mention first, then I can also attach that with my figures here.
Yes. Yes, so according to the Attorney General, per his investigations, a lot of monies were siphoned from the NSS account. In 2018-2019, over 25 million Ghana cedis was siphoned, and then 2019-2020, over 21 million was siphoned, and then 2020-2021, 555 million actually. And then 2021-2022, we have 61 million. 2022-2023, hoping 350 million was lost to ghost names in NSS. And then 2023-2024, 32 million. So in total, we have 548,333,542.65 pesos. This is the amount of money the country has lost to national service scheme ghost names. So the Attorney General explained that accounts were created, and so such money was siphoned into this account from the NSS main account. And then the Attorney General also said that 12 people will be charged. They'll be formally charged. These people include Mustafa Yusidi, he's a former MPA boss. Right. And then we have Osei Asibi Entry. He's a former Director General. We have Gifty Owari Mensah, former Deputy Executive Director. We have Kweku Ohenejan, also former Deputy Director. Kweku Asibi J, Kweku J, Accounts Officer. And the list continues. So these people, these 12 people, will be formally charged according to the Attorney General. And then the Attorney General mentioned that he has not approached anyone for a plea deal, but rather people approach him to see if they can go into plea deal, and then people are also ready to give information against their bosses and other persons. So this is how far the Attorney General has come in this case. So we are hoping for the best, Bright.
All right, Vanessa, thank you so much. I'm going to leave you to go back on the grounds and gather more, stories and conversations. I know that you are going to come back to the office and give us more updates on what exactly happened there at the press service. Thank you so much. And so Vanessa Editumboatin is our correspondent who was at the former Communications Information Ministry there, where it's now been turned into a government communication press office, right there where the Attorney General Dominic Ayine was there to give us all the latest updates on the fight against corruption here in the country. Let's now go back on our screens and take a look at what exactly the statement that was made by Dominic Ayine really was.
Of executing projects will divert the funds into private pockets. Another criminal scheme hatched and exploited by the directors and staff is the deployment of ghost names onto the NSA system. Once deployed, the directors will then request that both ghost names and genuine names be transmitted by the head of accounts to the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems, that is GIPS, for payment. These payments included payments to Eastwich cardholders procured for the fictitious National Service personnel. Our investigations compared monthly data of verified National Service personnel generated from the Central Management System and submitted to the NSA Accounts Office, and the data of the NSA personnel who were actually paid through the GIFT system for a period of 6 years. That is from 2018 to 2024. It was established that a total of 587,543 personnel were to be submitted to GIPS for payment of allowances. Meanwhile, data from GIPS showed that a total of 650,165 personnel were paid, indicating that 63,672 constituted ghost names. These consisted of the following categories of personnel. That is, National Service personnel who were blocked on the CMS system during the registration process. Then personnel, National Service personnel numbers that exist in the payment records but do not exist on the Central Management System. And then, of course, NSA or National Service volunteers, and then some management staff and marketplace vendors. Fellow countrymen and women, our investigators additionally established that some of the ghost names were added to the list submitted by vendors, representing the number of service personnel to whom they had supplied items or provided loan facilities, allegedly. When these vendors eventually received the payments, the directors and staff would then contact the vendors whose accounts had received payments, meet with them, and collect the additional money that had been added to the vendors' payments. For instance, we have conclusively established that after collecting these funds, some of the suspects, such as Gezi, Nyako, and Othing, handed them over to suspect Osei Asibe Entry in cash, and on some occasions deposited the cash into his bank account. Osei Asibe was the chief executive, the director general of the National Service Authority. Some directors
such as Gifty Owari Mensah, created and executed a meticulously detailed plan using NSP, National Service Personnel Allowances, as security to obtain a loan of 30,698,218 cedis, 69 pesos, from the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, at an interest rate of 23%. She achieved these results by using other people's information to register a company called Blocks of Life Consult without their knowledge or permission. Subsequently, she presented Blocks of Life Consult through in the person of Akwesi Ofori-Mintah to an official of the Agricultural Development Bank, enlisting her husband, Mr. Peter Mensah, a lawyer, to act as one of the directors or representative of the said company. She told ADB that the company specialized in supplying home appliances to national service personnel and proposed that ADB finance the company to enable it to supply these items on hire purchase basis to the service personnel, with the NSA being responsible for handling deductions and repayments. During the period, Gifty was the acting director, Gifty Owari Mensah was the acting director of the authority. However, on the marketplace of the authority, there was no indication that Blocks of Life was a registered vendor. Within 2 service years, suspect Gifty Owari Mensah used a total of 9,934 ghost names to misappropriate the aforementioned funds. Investigation further established that after ADB transferred the funds into the account of the company, she subsequently transferred the funds into 4 different company accounts with the names of Amiacom, Scaffold, Oche, and Aristo Logistics and Trading. It was further established that suspect Gifty is a director of Amiacom, and Scaffold Company Limited belongs to suspect Abraham Gezi. That between 3rd March 2023 and 24th May 2024, suspect Gifty transferred 22,518 Ghana cedis and 69 pesos to Amiacom, 1 million Ghana cedis to Scaffold, 1,572,000 Ghana cedis to Oche. And investigations, however, established that Eric Nyako, from 2017 until April 2024, and Idrisu Ibn Abubakar, April 2024 to December 2024, were responsible for preparing.
Well, from the horse's own mouth, figures that were, a word he used, meticulously, a meticulous plan put together by Gifty to make sure all these monies were transferred into a created company accounts where they were later disbursed into other banks that belong to other companies and all that. But all the suspects who have been mentioned in this scandal all had, private companies created to be able to, collect these monies through all these banks. Quite interesting. And Edem Senano is an anti-corruption campaigner, and he joins us live here on phone for a conversation. Edem, good afternoon to you. Welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
First of all, tell me your initial reaction to these investigation and the report given by Dominic Ayine, the Attorney General.
The impunity is so shocking. I mean, at that level, at the national level, if you have persons who can devise these means and expect to get away with it, then clearly systems are not working.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they can actually expect to get away with this kind of scheme, transfer money, create companies, and they didn't expect to be caught, they thought there's something they could get away with, clearly systems are not working. And it's probably why, in my view, the constant engagement of citizens and reporting of persons found culpable is important. That's the only way that people begin to get a sense that this impunity will not go unchecked and you'll be severely sanctioned. If we don't talk about it much more often, highlight who's been involved, make sure we jail and sanction them, retrieve the monies so that development can continue, we'll really be failing this generation and the country as a whole.
Now, with all this information and detailed work given by the Attorney General, what do you expect at the end of the day? I mean, you wouldn't want to just hear him come and speak about the fraudulent act and nothing happens. What are your expectations?
My indicators would be how much of the money has been retrieved.
Right.
Monies that have been siphoned off, if they've been invested in any assets, have those assets been retrieved? So monies retrieved, assets retrieved will be a key indicator. And then beyond that, what sanction measures beyond the naming and shaming? So naming and shaming by itself, we consider as a key sanction measure. Right. But beyond that, what else, is there a certain premium they have to pay, interest on the monies, time spent in community service or in jail, some punitive measure as well. So at least 3 or 4 things. First and foremost, let's retrieve the monies and assets. Beyond that, let's make sure there are some sanction measures that serve as a deterrent for any other persons who are so minded to think they can do these kind of things and rape the country.
I mean, another question I've seen people ask is, I mean, we know that the president and probably most of the ministers are made to announce or declare the assets before they go into office. Should we also be seeing a lot of these public office holders, like the NSS, Cocoa Board, and all those people, declare the asset before they go into office, just for later sake?
I think that as far as it is practicable, I don't know whether that would have helped in this instance. Right. What I think in this instance ought to have helped was, why did it take so long? I mean, I don't know, internal audit, didn't internal audit check this? So the question in my mind really is, who is vetting the database of national service personnel, and what did it involve? Because I would assume that you do a random selection of the names and numbers, call them, or physically, at least, physically do a random check from place to place. And if you discovered any discrepancies, immediately you do a thorough. So you move from, let's say, 10% random cross-checking and validation to, if the places where you find that there are discrepancies, then you decide to do 100%. I mean, I'm just asking myself, who is doing the auditing? And can the internal audit system plus the Auditor Generals tell us what has happened over the last few years? How come this was not on their radar? I put this at the doorsteps of the auditors, that who is auditing these systems? Plus they themselves. Didn't anybody realize something and thought it was going? So yes, as much as possible, if we can get many more public officers, evidently we need a much more comprehensive asset declaration regime for it to work, not the one where we put it in an envelope and nobody opens it. But if that were to be done, and we had many more persons across board doing it, yes, it will also be helpful if one wanted to cross-check what kind of resources have you earned, and is it possible that you could have earned these assets, especially if, as long as these assets have not been hidden in the names of other family and friends.
Right. Another question too is that this wasn't just done in just a year or two. It looks like it's being done consecutively, year after year after year after year. The figures keep turning big and bigger and bigger. I mean, from 65 million now turning to over 300 million and all that. Could it also be that the previous government probably knew about what was happening, decided to just do a cover-up, just so the issue doesn't get blown out of proportion and doesn't affect their chances during elections?
Well, we do know from evidence that impunity increases if it's not being addressed.
Right.
And there was a point at which it just felt like no serious efforts were underway to tackle graft.
Right.
And so many voices went silent, you know. And I think that this is the end result of an apparent disregard for incisively and robustly dealing with issues of corruption. Because once it didn't look like anybody was being held responsible, many more people felt that, oh, we'll get away with it. You know, we can just also create our companies. And you see, greed is such a thing that as you go along, it tends to make you want to take more. So I'm not surprised the numbers just appear to have been ballooning over time. But I think beyond retrieving sanctioning, there ought to be a review of the internal systems that failed. Because this should not have continued for this long. Somebody somewhere, I mean, that's why we have audit systems. Somebody should have noticed that there were ghost names. I mean, it's not the first time. And so the question I'll be asking is it only national service personnel? Are there other spaces and places in our public sector that people have been employed who actually are not real people, and people are pocketing them? So we probably need to then try and do some additional checks. But where did we fail? Where's the internal system that failed? I think that's a substantive question you are asking, and I'm aligned with it.
Right. And also, I mean, there's a saying that behind every successful man, there's a woman. This time around, there's a man behind the woman. The husband also got involved. Giftiwari's husband also got mentioned. What do you have to say about that?
Impunity breeds impunity. And that's what I say.
Impunity does what?
It breeds impunity. It just breeds impunity. I mean, people get away with it. You're able to step and walk over the rights of an individual. You're able to steal from the coffers of a company, and you think that, well, nobody's watching, nobody has stopped me. Might as well take as much as we can, you know. And that's the shocking part, that they really expected that they could get away with this. Hopefully, many of those kinds of, postures will change as a result of the work being done now. And we need to flush out any such persons who are still in the system, perhaps still, siphoning off resources that ought to be channeled into the development and substantive, projects for national growth. I mean, it's just surprising that we would have such individuals who think they could get away with this kind of action.
But do we have the resources to retrieve this amount? Or at least 80% of the money is, stolen. Do we have the resources to do that?
I think that what is important is whether the investigations throw up the trail. As the Attorney General himself said, in some cases it was easy to establish who received, where it was paid. And once they had a paper trail and the evidence is clear, they are quite confident of making sure that they get rulings and sanctions done. To that extent, I'm sure that, at least in this instance, they appear to have quite substantive information they believe will give them the rulings. And so that's good. It may not be the case in every instance, but clearly for this one, people got so, I don't know what word to use, so bold, so arrogantly bold that they were able to do things without paying, attention to the trail they were leaving. And that has worked in our favor.
As an anti-corruption campaigner, I mean, if you're asked the type of punishment or whatever is supposed to be done to these, fingered persons, what would you suggest?
I think we should get a lot more into community service,
Community service?
Yes. Things where you are serving, everybody can see you. And we know that when you are serving in this space or on such things, is because you have been engaged in actions of this nature. And I say that because, listen, what you want is reform. You want money back. You want
Yes.
persons to know you can't get away with these things. I don't think that putting them in a jail and paying the state having to find money to feed, to clothe, to give you medication, it's actually a pragmatic use of resources. I think that those individuals, if we want to reform them, let's find a way of reforming them, make sure that their energies, their intellect can still serve in some kind of capacity. So yes, you have some who are hardened, etc. You can't avoid having prisons and jails, but that in itself provides a workforce that we can use. So I think we should be a lot more innovative. I am aware we don't have a law on community service, etc., and that's a gap. I think it's a major gap we need to address and find ways in which such persons can help, whether it's in road building, whether it's in farming, whether it's in some service or goods production that contributes to the economy, but in spaces where everybody knows that these people, so it's part of the naming and shaming, and by the time you are done, we see how we reintegrate you. That would be my proposal.
But then how forgive me to use the word excited, you know, I know this might not be good for somebody else, but to you as an anti-corruption campaigner, I mean, how excited are you for such revelations? Do you see the country now willingly wanting to fight corruption and those involved?
I am delighted that all of this has not been swept under the carpet. I mean, there was a point where we were all worried that, look, it looks like anything goes and nobody was paying attention to voices of reason and saying that it didn't look like we were headed in the right direction. What I find unfortunate is the situation where it appears that the tenure of a government needs to end before the subsequent government does investigation and unearths these facts and holds people accountable. I think that's not augur well for all of us. And so I want a situation where not only is the light shining on the past government, but also on the current government. Are there any actions being taken now? Do our internal systems, are they able to arrest people now and such that it is not that political affiliation and influence is going to, as it were, deny us the opportunity of holding accountable current government officials who might already start engaging in actions like this? And that's why I think it's a very important issue you raised earlier. What is happening to our internal systems? How did we fail in this instance of the National Service Secretariat? How do we ensure that now, those who are there is an eye being kept on them, there is monitoring being done, there is data being collected, auditing of which people, which National Service names are in the inventory, in the payroll, and are they real people? So I am happy to note that, yes, it is not like no actions have been taken, but I think it will be much more critical to make sure that within the tenure of every government, our internal systems and agencies required to follow up on these issues are alive and active, and persons who are breaching the laws and trying to circumvent the rules are being held accountable, found culpable, sanctioned when necessary to serve as a deterrent.
Let me ask you this next question by picking your answer. What you mentioned about why a government has to go out of power before the next one comes in to do the investigations or whatever it is, or the auditing and all that to find all this corruption and scandals. Why should it be so? Why is a certain government not able to investigate their own people who, one way or the other, may have been fingered by citizens or by some revelations? Why does it get so difficult to be done?
Well, it looks like there is a subculture we have where family and friends, if it's part of my family, part of my friends, loyalty is much more important than ethics and morality.
Right.
It's very unfortunate. It's a weakness, perhaps, that we need to interrogate as a society. And what it then means is that we need to celebrate those amongst us who don't go down that road or follow that trajectory, because they are the ones who, if you give them the position of Auditor General or monitoring or evaluation, they will ensure that the issue of family and friends and loyalty is not held to be far superior than ethics, morality, and doing the right thing. So I think there's a part of us that in our discussions, we seem to think that, oh, he's a member of the family, don't do that to him. Oh,
Right.
let him, that's not how progressive societies have made it. You can only make it because those who are doing the wrong thing amongst you are called out, are named and shamed. They are helped to, as it were, improve their behavior and align with what serves the public good. That's critical. So none of us helps ourselves when our children are doing the wrong thing and we overlook it, where you pretend nothing's gone wrong, you pamper them. They only grow from being naughty children to adults who are engaged in criminal activity.
Absolutely.
So there's a high level of introspection we need to do as a society and accept that we have this subculture which actually does not serve the best interest of the nation.
Edem Sinano, thank you so much for time with us on Metro TV. So I've been speaking to Edem Sinano, who is the co-chair for Citizens Movement Against Corruption, and he's been telling me all that he makes of the revelation given or made by the Attorney General, Honorable Dominic Ayeni. Quite interesting one there. And the big question is, will they end here? Will these people be prosecuted? After that, will the monies be retrieved? And even if they are retrieved, can we even retrieve every single coin or peswa, lost to these corrupt people? Thank you so much, Adam. We are grateful. And so we'll be bringing you more updates here on Metro TV. But don't forget, this is the latest report coming from Operation Recover or Loot, ORAL, with which the Attorney General is taking keen interest in and making sure that these people are, fingered, and mentioned, and investigated for a good result. Don't go nowhere. After this quick turn, the nurses who mentioned they were going on strike are seeing something else. We'll tell you more about that after the break. Don't go nowhere. I'm Bryce Nana Kusimani, and this is Good Afternoon, Ghana.
Whether you're a wholesaler, retailer, or consumer, MNC Logistics and Trading is your trusted partner in minerals and food commodities trading. Experience the difference with MNC Logistics and Trading for your commodities trading. We operate a well-equipped laboratory that smelts and assays gold to ensure transparent, credible, and reliable minerals transactions. Our general food commodity market deals with imports and exports of food products such as rice, sugar, and grains. We pride ourselves on delivering products that meet the highest standards of quality and taste. With our expertise in international trading and logistics, we bridge customers far and wide. Locate us at number 4 Neosai Interfo Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 030-299-8246 or visit our website www.mnclogisticsandtrading.com. MNC Logistics and Trading, hub of confidence.
I'm a branch manager. Of course, I accept only quality and affordable printed souvenirs for my promotional campaigns.
I'm the head of academic affairs of a very important institution in Ghana. Of course, we only deal with quality, reliable printing companies for our institution's printing materials. I'm talking about appointed time printing.
Appointed Time Printings. We take pride in our extensive print scope that transform your ideas into captivating visual masterpieces. We delve into the core objectives and vision of each print project. Precision printing is at the heart of our printing process as we meet your tight deadlines. Our rigorous inspection, color verification, and overall printing excellence are assured. 20 years of printing excellence. It's always a pleasure working with you to create a vibrant, dazzling printing experience that gives you a masterpiece. Appointed Time Printing, your world of quality and affordable printing.
pleas from our patients, and the timely intervention of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, the leadership of the association wishes to state as follows. The engagement held with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health and other interested parties on Thursday, 12 June 2025, was very fruitful and has paved the way for an amicable resolution of the impasse with our employer concerning the implementation of our collective agreements. 2. In view of point 1 above, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association's industrial action initiated on 2nd June 2025 is hereby suspended, pending the outcome of the follow-up meeting scheduled for 26 June 2025. 3. We call on our dear nurses and midwives to resume their normal shift duties from Saturday, 14th June 2025. And we wish to assure you that we will not rest on our oars until the collective agreement is fully implemented. 4. We are thankful to the chairman, the ranking member, and all other members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health for their timely intervention to set a clear framework for the implementation of our collective agreements. We are equally grateful to the nursing and midwifery fraternity, especially our GRNMA members, for the deep sense of solidarity in adhering to the roadmap. To the press, we thank you sincerely for carrying our voices to Ghanaians and indeed the whole world, and encourage you all to be professional in all matters to protect citizens from misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. We thank you all for your attention.
That is Madam Perpetual Ofori Ampofo. I've been told to say Madam. So yes, Madam Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, representing the Ghana Nurses Association and registered nurses, you know, and she's speaking on behalf of all of them, asking them to go back to work, and that their strike is over. We want to speak to the issue, and have been joined on phone, on Zoom, by Philemon, who is with the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association. What exactly made them want to go back, you know, to work? Philemon, if you can hear me clearly, good afternoon to you, and welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana.
Yeah, good afternoon, and
great to have you here.
Listeners.
I know we've been with you throughout the entire conversation concerning your strike and all that. Tell us, what made you want to go back to work?
That's correct. Three key things. The first one is the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian. We have heard their call, we have heard some of the images, the cry, and that's originally called us to order, and we were ever ready to call off the strike.
Right.
Just that our members were not ready to heed to their call alone. And the second issue had to be with a call from the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health. We had the Honorable Majority Leader sit in that meeting together with all other stakeholders, pleading that we call off the strike because of the sufferings of Ghanaians. And secondly, we came into a consensus, like we came into an agreement, an amicable way to look at what is at stake and how they can address the problem going forward. A 2 weeks ultimatum was given for us to meet the team again to be able to reach a solution. The third reason had to be with the legal issues, a court injunction by the National Labour Commission on the impending strike, where they went for a substituted service to be able to serve us via the social media to be able to call off this strike action. So these three reasons are the main reason why we are to resign our decision and call off this industrial action.
But then none of the things you requested for, or none of the requirements you made to government has been satisfied.
Well, I won't say that's the case. At the moment, we have come into some middle level agreement with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health. They have put themselves forth to see to the issue. Some components of these allowances that we are yearning or fighting for will be addressed in the interim, but we are not, fine protocol will not allow us to put it across. We are supposed to meet the team in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, we'll be able to put some finality to these agreements.
One of the questions that people have been asking a lot ever since the issue of your strike was announced is, what exactly do you need funeral allowance for?
That's very erroneous, my brother. Funeral allowance for whose funeral? And let me use this opportunity to caution journalists who took this divisive propagandist and political things to just derail our efforts. The Public Services Joint Standing Negotiation Committee has these components of allowances as part of every public sector employees allowance, like height allowance, funeral grants, transfer grants, and all that. And that is not what we negotiated for. What is contained in our collective agreement was the Appendix B, and it was very clear, 8 components of allowances. And these are the rural incentive allowance, the continuous professional development support, the book and research allowance, the on-call facilitating allowance, the, 8% non-basic allowance, the uniform allowance, and then what again? There's one more that I have not mentioned. But these are core allowances that are peculiar to nurses and midwives, and that was the reason why we embarked on the strike. All those funeral grant and whatever were just lies, palpable lies, and it's unfortunate they were coming from journalists who call themselves trained journalists.
Right, good clearance right there. Now, let's also speak about the fact that we had the Honorable Minister for Health, Minta Kando, who was calling on retired nurses to fill in the space that she left behind. When you heard this call from him, what went through your mind?
My brother, do you think retired nurses can fit into the gap? How many are they? In what capacity can they resist the pressure that is coming from the public, the healthcare system, the theaters, the OPDs, the emergencies? Looking at how frail their conditions are. Some of them are even living with diabetes, hypertension. Some are also impoverished by non-implementation of conditions conditions of service agreement that were signed in the past. So in the first place, they were not ready to come. And secondly, they were not in the capacity to fill into the gap. And number 3, the pressures. If you look at an operating theater like Kolebu, like Konfanoche, like Rich, where they do several surgeries in the space of time with all these skilled men that are needed, do you think retired nurses could have fit into the gap? They were not in the capacity to do so. I think the Minister for Health was overwhelmed. He was devastated. There was so much pressure on him, and he was looking for the possible means, any other means possible to mitigate this strike action. But we felt the most probable action was to seek the Minister of Finance to address this challenge by signing the collective agreement that was agreed. Thank you.
But also, there were a few reports that indicated that some persons, especially pregnant women, who may have come for antenatal and all that, were asked to go back home. Do you also realize the level of risk you may have caused with your absence in these facilities?
That's rather unfortunate. In fact, under normal circumstances, JRNMA doesn't go on strike. We don't resort to lockouts. We expected that these issues wouldn't get to this state. That's why even the roadmap that was provided was so heightened. If you realize, we were withdrawing, we started with red armbands. The second stance was to withdraw OPD services and the likes. And then the last resort was to withdraw all manner of services. This is because we expected within 72 hours.
Including emergency?
including emergency, was withdrawn. In fact, during the total withdrawal, all services, all nursing services were withdrawn, and we didn't expect to get to that peak because we know how important and how precarious the situation gets when nurses and midwives are on strike. However, we were compelled to do so by the intransigent position of the employer. They were not in any light seeking to solve the needs of the ordinary Ghanaian nurse and midwife, seeing that our conditions of service that has been negotiated and signed was not going to be implemented at all in any way, whilst our other colleagues enjoyed this. And that angered the majority of our followers, and they were not ready to do anything or ready to budge to the pleas of the public or even the executives.
Philemon, probably, if I may ask you this, I mean, from you being a human and taking an oath to help save lives and all that, next time that you want to embark on a strike and you think it may be too much, what other alternative would you want to carry and not strike? Could there be an alternative, a better alternative as to striking?
There is always a better alternative to solve issues. Let me use this opportunity to apologize to Ghanaians for the mishap, for the unfortunate issue. And some people might have lost loved ones. Some people had their conditions deteriorating. We are very sorry about this. This is not what we mean for Ghanaians. But the labor law enshrines and enjoins National Labour Commission to, within 72 hours, resolve issues of impasse between the employer and the union. And we expected that to have addressed these issues so that we don't get into such a precarious situation. In fact, when they are addressing this issue and there is a lockout or they get to a dead end, they are mandated by the same labor law to call for a compulsory arbitration. And in compulsory arbitration, whatever decision is taken is final. It's more or less like a high court decision. And the parties are obliged to respect that decision. But that didn't happen. I think the NSC and the agency with which our plight was addressed also affected our decision to come back to the table, our decision to call off this industrial action. And I hope that stakeholders, authorities must act promptly next time so that we don't get to such situation.
I also saw a letter that was making rounds. I don't know if you saw it. A letter that was suggesting that nurses who have been home for a while and haven't been posted can actually apply for them to be posted, because at the time that you were on strike, there was space. Did you see the letter? How do you react to that if you saw it?
I didn't cite any such official document. Some of these situations, people take advantage of that and put several other documents in the public space that cannot be validated. However, if there is space and there is an agency to apply to employ our junior folks, we always advocate that when nurses and midwives complete their training, they don't need to stay home and get delayed before they get back to the field. They are wasting away their skills, and in such situation, I mean, they may be eager to come, but I mean, to what end? Does it have to be a strike action for them to be called? If there is space, let's employ them. In fact, those of us at the workplaces, there we can see difficulty at some point. We can see pressure at some units. We can see in some wards and in some communities or regions, the numbers are very few, and we are calling on the employer, if there is space, to, as a matter of agency, employ our junior cadre that are home. We have about 2-3 cadres that are lacking behind at home. It doesn't have to even take a strike action to employ them.
Philemon, before I let you go, is there another word you want to give to Ghanaians? I mean, before they apologized and all that, but quickly take me through what exactly, like you mentioned, the conversation you've had with the authorities and stakeholders in a plan to fix all these issues. A quick one, then we can wrap up with you.
Well, as I said earlier, we are sorry about the mishap. Parliamentary Select Committee has done its job. We want to appreciate what they did. We want to commend Ghanaians. They carried our voice across, especially the media houses. Most media stations were very professional, with the exception of a few who were doing propaganda and they were doing misinformation and disinformation. And we condemn that. And we don't expect trained journalists to participate in such divisive and disservice to Ghanaians. But in all, we want to also commend our nurses and midwives for heeding to our call to go back to work. In fact, we have not gotten all that we need, but we think that we need to listen to Ghanaians, and we are grateful for listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Philemon. Philemon Japan is the assistant PR for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. And he just spoke to us concerning them having to return back to work, following a strike action. Hopefully the issues get fixed. And so if you missed the conversation, let me just give you some quick pointers of what he just said. He said they've heard the plea of Ghanaians and they are returning back to work. All those funeral grants were lies, and a number of journalists were the ones who were peddling that misinformation. And he's asking whether Ghanaians think that retired nurses could fit into the system, the current system. And also another one was retired nurses were not ready to come, and they are not in the capacity to fit into the gap. They are also apologizing to Ghanaians for the unfortunate issues, as some people might have lost their loved ones. These are some pointers from the conversation with Philemon Japan, who is the assistant PR for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Let's now go back on the phone lines and speak to Deputy Ranking Member on Health in Parliament, Dr. Richard Boakye-Yiadom, on what exactly this means to him and entire parliamentary populace. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana. All right, we are trying to get him back on the lines again, but we just spoken to Philemon Japan, who is the assistant PR for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, and they've apologized. He, in particular, I believe on behalf of all nurses and midwives across the country, are apologizing to Ghanaians for whatever misfortune may have happened as a result of their strike action. They've already had a conversation with the Parliament Select Committee on Health, and they are finding ways and means to make sure that all these issues, are fixed. And he's stating that one particular thing concerning the funeral allowance was a lie. It's not part of their request. Even though they have a list of things they're requesting, funeral allowance really isn't part. And so they'll love for Ghanaians to not to listen to that particular statement concerning funeral grants and all that. And so we're still live here on Good Afternoon Ghana, very live and active, on Facebook and also on YouTube and on Instagram and on X at Metro TV GH. Initially, we spoke on the issue concerning the Attorney General, who has come to make some claims concerning what exactly it is for corruption that has happened at the National Service Authority. But before we go back on the phone line to speak to the Deputy Ranking Member on Health in Parliament, who is Dr. Richard Boakye-Yiadom, let's take a look at this one. Now, over 2,000 youth in the country are expected to be trained in entrepreneurial skills for the next 10 years to help curb the alarming unemployment situation among the young people. Now, speaking at the collaborative initiative between MasterCard Foundation and Koforidua Technical University to train more youth in the area of entrepreneurship, executives stating that the impact will be very significant as more jobs will be created for the teeming unemployed youth. Take a listen to this. I'll be back.
The project, William Odum, revealed that more than 592,000 youth are jobless and that the entrepreneurship training will help create more employment opportunities for them while benefiting from some startup funds. He stated that over 2,000 youth will be trained under the program for the next 10 years and that the impact will be great as far as job creation is concerned.
This project is very important because looking at them unemployment situation in Ghana as at the end of 2024, we have about 592,000 people who are unemployed. And so if we want to continue in this tangent, it is not going to be very good for Ghana. And so this project has come with one of the pillars as entrepreneurship pillar. And with entrepreneurship, we are going to develop people in a way that is experiential learning. People are going to learn through experiential learning, hands-on training, and at the end of it all, they are not going to be part of the total unemployment groups in Ghana, but they are going to have skills that they are going to use to establish their own industries. They are going to use to establish their own small businesses and develop it.
The Eastern Regional Director of the Youth Enterprise Agency, Atiga Foley Gapo, said there's the need to empower and package the local artisans to be able to take advantage of emerging opportunities, pointing out that his outfit is looking at shifting to provide sustainable jobs for the youth under the YEA program. He also explained that the MasterCard Foundation, in collaboration with the Koforidua Technical University, are geared to inculcate some entrepreneurial skills into the youth to shift the focus from over-reliance on white-collar jobs.
And so there you have it. Hopefully it gets done and, there'll be more employment in the country. Also, the Chief Executive Officer of the African Center for Economic Transformation, Mavis Owusu Gyamfi, has expressed concern over Africa's lack of coordinated response to global economic disruptions, particularly in the wake of tariff hikes initiated by the United States. Speaking at the City Business Forum, Mavis Owusu Gyamfi highlighted that other regions, notably Asia, responded swiftly and strategically to the recent tariff increases announced by U.S. President Donald Trump, but cannot say the same for Africa.
Sign the agreements, but then when it comes to putting in place the local policies and regulations to actually implement it, it's problematic. We like saying we don't have money on the continent. The problem is we have money, but it's deployed in the wrong way.
Okay.
We have pension funds that are garnering very low interest rates sitting in the US. Now, in about X number of years, I'll be calling on my pension. I've got a way to go, but I'm still thinking ahead on calling on my pension. I don't want my pension in risky investments if the regulatory framework is not there. But if the regulatory framework is there, the money is available, okay? Our tax systems, whenever we talk about illicit financial flows, we like to talk a lot about the money our politicians are taking out. We don't fight for the money that large international corporates are taking out that we are not getting back as taxes.
And there you have it. Let's go back to our earlier conversation concerning the strikes by nurses who are announcing they are back to work. And Dr. Patrick Boachi-Yadom is the Deputy Ranking Health Committee member of Parliament and also MP for Boise East, joining me now on a phone for a conversation. Doc, good afternoon to you. Welcome to Good Afternoon, Ghana.
Good afternoon, sir.
A quick one. Our nurses are back to work. What do you make of this?
Let me extend my greetings to your cherished viewers.
Right.
And to say, we had good news this morning. We're highly appreciative of the effort by the nurses. In fact, we must congratulate them because it's a difficult decision, painful decision that they took, and we intervened at the right time, and we had good results. So it's a plus for for Parliament. It's a plus for the committee. It's also a plus for the GRNMA for a good fight.
But Doc, now the issue is why do we always have to wait for these public workers to always want to strike before we think of a solution to the problems? Why do we do that?
Rather, that is what I don't understand. But you see, since the beginning of this strike, I've condemned the attitude of governments. I'm talking about Ghana governments.
Right.
Government after government. Government is able to secure agreements, working conditions, improve working conditions for workers. But when it gets to the time for implementation, it becomes a problem. That attitude of government is bad and it's condemnable. When they wait for unions to strike, then they resort to state institutions to go to court and secure injunction against striking workers. That is not good. Once an agreement is made, each party is supposed to comply. But government has this tendency to drag their feet, always being lackadaisical, and sometimes you hear in the labor front, strikes are the only language that government understands.
Right.
So I think we need to tell government that they should be up and doing.
They've given an ultimatum to government to make sure these problems are solved, or probably they might end up going back on the strike. How are we going to make sure that we don't go back on strike again? Because we heard of news on what happened to people when they went to the hospitals and they were not attended to by the nurses and all that.
You see, nurses and midwives have taken this decision on the basis that they have confidence in Parliament's Health Committee.
Right.
And members of the committee have put our heads on the line because they know we can advocate and fight for them. We are sure with the compromise yesterday, nurses have responded favorably. They are going back to work. Government should do the needful. We agree that some items on the conditions of service at least should be taken on board and be implemented in the mid-year budget.
Right.
Then in the 2026 budget, they attempt to do full implementation of the agreement. So the little that is due the nurses, what we have agreed on yesterday as a committee, on the basis of which nurses have called off the strike, government is expected to do it. If they don't do it, then my brother, Ghanaians will suffer.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time with us here on the program. We are grateful. Dr. Richard Boachi Adam is a ranking member on Parliament Health Committee and also doubles as Member of Parliament for Obuasi East constituency. And he was here on phone to speak to us about the nurses who are back from their strike, back to work, back to their post. Anyways, we are wrapping up here on the program today. But I want to go back and give you the figures that were stated earlier in the presser that saw the Attorney Auditor General, Honorable Dominic Ayeni, speak to us and tell us about how much money has been lost, how much money has been lost to scandal that has been recorded at the National Service Security Authority. And listen, between 2018 to 2019, an amount of 25,857,836.16 was taken illegally. Between 2019 and 2020, an amount of 21,613,962.24 illegally were taken. 2020-2021, 55,670,584.32 taken. And let's now talk about 2021 to 2022, 61,383,025.74 stolen. I should be using the word stolen anyways. And between 2022 and 2023, 350,926,977.12 taken. The highest so far, the highest between 2028 and 2024. And also between the year 2023 to 2024, an amount of 32,881,157.7 Ghana cedi were stolen. In all, an amount of 548,333,542.65 million Ghana cedi have been stolen. Such huge money. I'm asking, what exactly are you using this money for? Anyways, thank you so much for watching the show here. And I'm going to leave you again with this code form. Legal team member of the NDC, Kojo Victor Kojo Adaudu Esquire. He says, the law is the law, but there will always be equity. Equity will always follow. He said it right here on Good Morning Ghana Metro TV. I am Bryce Nanakwesiaman. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Clean your compound every morning. It's cheaper than treating malaria. Don't wait for government. Lead the change.
L'Éternel est mon berger, je ne manquerai de rien. Il me fait reposer dans de verts pâturages. Il me dirige près des eaux paisibles.